Welcome back, HellDivers. It's good to see you again on the front line. The last type energy weapons are a formidable item that can be greatly benefit long and tireless gameplay. From having good range built into them to having near infinite ammo on hand, the last weapon fixes one of the biggest issues that kinetic weapons tend to suffer from. But out of the three main primaries, which one is better? Today we'll take a look into the three last primaries in game, compare their stats to see who is more superior, and then look at their pros and cons before concluding the video. Let's make a start. Before we start comparing things, it's best we first go over the weapons so we know what they are and generally what they do. Let's start with the last 5 Scythe. The last 5 Scythe is a laser rifle that fires a continuous beam. It has light armor penetration, does not need reloading, can apply fire damage, but can also overheat and will need a new heatsink for further use. The last 16 Sickle is a laser rifle, firing in short bursts instead of a long continuous one. It has light penetration, higher damage rate than the Scythe, and does not need to reload unless you overheat it. Lastly, the double-edged Sickle is a last 16 Sickle model with all overheating protections conveniently removed, allowing for far longer bursts of fire. It does more damage when overheating at the cost of slightly burning the user. It also has light, medium and heavy penetration rounds, which is only available once the weapon is firing for X amount of time. It also has a higher damage rate than the other last weapons, but at a given cost. With this small introduction done, let's take a look at the 3 weapon stats altogether. Off the bat, you may think that the Scythe is the best weapon around as it has a higher damage rate than the other 2, better recoil, and a +1 ammo capacity overall. However, this would only be true if you tend to use a weapon in lower difficulties. The weapon provides a nice consistent source of damage that can rain havoc on less protected enemies in game. Think of the Shriekers, Votlers and Troopers in game. This is where the Scythe excels well, as its high damage and little recoil allows you to zap enemies from long distance, but also making it easier to keep your shots consistent since you just need to point, aim and shoot until the enemy is dead. It also comes with the pro of applying fire damage to enemies, something that not only bumps up your damage over time, but is not seen very much on other primary weapons. However, this is where the weapon becomes inapplicable at times, as it gets easily outdone by the Sickle and double edge when used in higher difficulties. Compared to its higher damage, less recoil, and higher capacity, the Sickle and double edge tend to fall behind it with what it offers. Both the Sickle and edge have near the same damage rate, near the same fire rate, and pretty much the same capacity and recoil, and yet both these weapons provide a better overall usage when used on the field. Compared to its cousin, the Scythe, the Sickle boasts roughly twice the damage output, but is less precise due to its spread and recoil. As well as its incapability of setting targets on fire, this goes the same for the double edge, which actually comes out with a near high damage rate when firing for longer, but has the trade-off of setting the end user on fire if used for too long. As it functions effectively like a heat-based assault rifle, the Sickle will pretty much act like one, where its projectile damage comes out higher when used against key weak points on enemies. Something I noticed when using the 3 is that the Scythe excels well with cutting key limbs of enemies because of its continuous beam attack, while the other weapons can aim at the head of a target for example, and kill them within a 1 to 3 shots depending on who you face, which does generally show that the weapons will perform much better when given a designated role to focus on. Now the weapons do all have a fairly good range within a 5 to 20 meter range and beyond sometimes, and against the bugs, spots and illuminates, the 3 weapons can deal with the fodder enemies within a 2 to 6 hits depending on where you generally hit, although this will be a bit more different for the Scythe, which is a straight beam weapon. Once you start to hit the more armoured enemies, unless you hit their soft spots, the Scythe and Sickle tend to become obsolete over time. The double edge though can deal with these types of enemies fine once you heat it up, and is something that a lot of players in higher difficulties will bring with them if they intend to face against a wide haul of enemies. Comparably, the edge has 4 stages to its heat build up that neither the Scythe or Sickle has. For example, Stage 1, when firing at a 0 to 25% heat, the weapon fires a 55 damage with light armor penetration and does not deal damage to the end user. Stage 2, when firing at a 26 to 50% heat, the weapon continues to fire 55 damage but now deals medium armor penetration and deals 10 heat damage a second to the user. Stage 3, when firing at a 51 to 90% heat rate, the weapon fires 70 damage, plus medium armor penetration, and now deals 20 heat damage a second to the end user. Stage 4, which is the deadliest, is when firing at a 91% plus heat, the weapon fires 70 damage, has heavy penetration rounds, and will generally set the user on fire, dealing 50 heat damage a second, along with the extra damage from being set on fire. With proper resistance, this stage is incredibly lethal and is very likely to kill the end user if not prepared. The bonus of the build-up allows said weapon to perform better when used against all types of enemies in game, while both the Scythe and Sickle will see no change outside of the additional fire damage that the Scythe provides. Still, it has its cons, which makes it very risky to even use in most fronts you bring it into. So while the weapon's performance have been noted with them being smoother to fire and provide better ergonomics that most kinetic weapons can't match, what are the pros and cons that the weapons have compared to each other? Let's start with the Scythe. Scythe is great for mid to long range headshotting and is a decent pick as long as you've got an answer for some of the other harder to hit enemies. The precision and lack of recoil paired with the forgiveness of infinite ammo and it being a beam weapon means you'll be doming enemies left and right. It becomes practically good when used solely on the butt front since it can evaporate enemies via headshot alone. It's also very good at cutting limbs off if you wish to weaken or slow some enemies down. The cons though, a damage is like half of all other weapons DPS wise and requires a near full beam and a half to kill most enemies in game. It's also generally bad against bugs because of how numerous and aggressive they are at times, and since the weapon lacks any stunning capabilities, they can attack you quite easily even though you're still beaming them. Its TDK isn't fast enough to kill most enemies, which makes it very hard to use on most fronts, and the lack of stagger poses more risk to the end user when generally being overwhelmed. For the Sickle, if you're a big fan of the Liberator, then you'll love this version as an alternative. This Sickle has a higher DPS than what the Scythe offers, which makes it ideal against all enemy factions. Its ease of use allows anyone to pick this up and use straight away without the need of practicing, and its accuracy and fire rate is also top notch, which allows better finishers when being used up close. Con wise, it's got a spin up of a second or two before it starts firing, which can make a difference if you're caught off guard. On hot planets, it also becomes a bit more hard to use, which to be fair, affects all last weapons. And for the double edge. Pros, it's great against all three factions because of its damage over time. It makes full use of all three penetration types over time, which is perfect when you start to become overwhelmed, and you can make full use of its heavy penetration for longer even when on fire, as long as you have the fire resistance armor, vitality booster, and steam yourself over time. Cons, because of its stage 3 and 4 are the best stages you want to be at, it will inflict heavy damage to you the longer you fire it. It's generally not recommended to use if you don't have the right armor or gear to support you, and it makes you an easy target to be killed if even one enemy manages to get by you while attacking. Also at stage 4, trying to use your scope becomes near impossible as the smoke and spark will block it. So arguably, which is the better weapon overall? The winner for today is quite obvious, the Sickle, while in second place is the double edge, and then last place is, no surprise, the Scythe. The Sickle is just like the Liberator through and through, except for it being a laser weapon with heat sink. Its damage is incredible, with taking enemies out fairly well, it's very easy to use and operate over time, while using it on hot planets makes it detrimental for its overall usage, it's still viable compared to the other two weapons. The double edge is similar to the Sickle, except it's brilliant to use on higher difficulties because of its mountain penetration increasement. It's the one weapon in the list that you can partly safely bring with you wherever you go, and can do fairly well as long as you pay attention to your health bar at all. The Scythe unfortunately comes last as its damage generally isn't that great. It may feel smooth like butter to use, and have an effective use on bot fronts, but its lack of damage and stagger makes it very hard to use on most other fronts, especially bugs. It's also only had the light penetration rounds, making its usage very limited to specific enemies. I wouldn't use the Scythe as commonly, as it lacks that oomph compared to the other weapons, and unless the devs can find a way to buff this further, the weapon will stay dead last for a very long time. So there we have it. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you have any thoughts on content shared, or genuinely like what was shown, then please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe for more future stuff. It was great seeing you again, HellDivers, and I hope to see you again soon.